Hi friends, welcome to our lecture 6 of Quality Management System, which is ISO 9001-2015. This is Amar Dinesh Singh. Let's recap what we discussed in lecture 5. We discussed about clause number 5, which was leadership and its various subclauses, which was 5.1, 5.2 and 5.3. 5.1 states leadership and commitment, 5.2 policy, 5.3 Organization roles, responsibilities and authorities. What are we going to cover in today's lecture? We are going to touch upon the clause number 6, which is planning. Clause 6.1, actions to address risk and opportunities. 6.2, quality objectives and planning to achieve them. 6.3, planning of changes. When it's come to planning, we all know that a particular organization internal and external environment is always subjected to a constant change. These changes are uncertainty in nature, which in turn poses a risk. This uncertainty can be defined as having an insufficient or no knowledge of a potential event to determine whether or not it will happen, or if it has happened, whether the outcome of the event will be a positive or a negative. So, this uncertainty presents both the risk as well as the opportunity, with the potential to hinder or grow the business. ISO 9000 gets more technical in nature and defines this risk as the effect of uncertainty. Effect is described as a deviation from the expected, either it could be a positive or a negative. Planning is the process of conceptualizing the activity required to achieve a desired goal. It involves thinking about the risk that may occur in future and addressing this through adequate control measures. Clause 6 of ISO 9001 deals with a highly critical activity and requires an organization to take a risk-based approach. Question is why? Why is this risk management important? The concept of risk in the context of ISO 9001-2015 relates to the uncertainty in achieving the objective of the QMS. This shift was done to introduce a proactive approach to handling the risk rather than taking an approach of a preventive action which the issue has already occurred. For example, let's say if I want to bring a change in a particular process, so definitely I am going to do the risk mapping before the change and after the change. Let's say before the change I am having 10 risk. Maybe after the change the risk may goes high, 15 or 20, or maybe it can come down. So we should do all kind of this risk investigation or mapping before doing any kind of changes in the process. In a business scenario also, the risks are equally important. Through a proactive approach and the planning ahead for the risk, we can avoid unforeseen situations, occurrence, events or incidents. This helps in the reduction or the mitigation of our liabilities and improve the product or the service delivery, which eventually helps in managing the business reputation and helps in its growth. Now we'll talk about the sub-clauses of clause number 6, which is planning. Sub-clause 6.1, action to address the risk and the opportunities. 6.1.1, whenever we plan for the quality management system, the organization shall consider the issues referred to in 4.1 and the requirements referred to in 4.2 clause and determine the risk and the opportunities that needs to be addressed to give assurance that a QMS can achieve its intended result what it has been meant for. It should enhance the desirable effects, prevent or reduce the undesired effects, and achieve the improvement. Organization can decide whether or not to develop a more extensive risk management methodology through application of other risk management guidance, standards and tools. This organization must integrate the action to address this risk and the opportunities into a QMS process using the Pdca cycle-based approach method. When it comes to a Pdca cycle, we have already discussed in the very first beginning of our lecture what do we mean by the Pdca. We all know that the QMS setup is completely based on the Pdca based approach. When it's come to a plan, it gains the leadership commitment. It helps in identifying and assessing the risk. It creates a plan to address the risk and the opportunities. Do implement your plan to mitigate the risk through a communication, training and control. Then comes check. Monitor your risk management plan using measurements and the internal audit reporting. Finally, the act. Implement any changes to your approach. Continually review the opportunities for improvement. 6.1.2. The organization shall plan an action to address this risk as well as the opportunity. How to integrate and implement the actions into its QMS process. It helps in evaluating the effectiveness of these actions. Actions taken to address the risk and opportunity shall be proportionate to the potential impact on the conformity of the product and the services. Subclause 6.2, which is quality objectives and planning to achieve them. The next stage of planning is to set a quality objective for various level functions in the organization. That means we are going to set the quality objectives for each and every department in a particular organization. The quality objective must be defined in a way that they are measurable, and consideration shall be given to the applicable customer and statutory and the regulatory requirements. A very simple method of establishing this quality objective is using the SMART methodology. What SMART specify? It is abbreviated as S, specific. The objectives are written in a way it is interpreted in same way by anyone who reads it. Measurable. This means that the objective should be quantitative in nature so that it can be compared against a goal and its achievement can be assessed. Terms such as amount, percentage, etc. shall be used to define this objective. Third comes achievable. An objective which is planned but capturing its data is difficult, or there are no mechanism resources to achieve the result, makes an objective useless. So the adequate resources / the mechanism should be available to achieve the objective. R stands for relevant. The objective shall be relevant to the organization context and it shall provide an insight if the customer's statutory and the regulatory requirements are being met or not. It should be time oriented. The objective should be a time bound so that its achievement can be evaluated within a fixed time frame. So I have listed few of the examples keeping in mind the SMART methodology. For example, the first example, the product. So reduction in a defective product by 2% within the year. So you can see what is our objective. Our objective is to reduce the defective percentage of the particular product. So specific, yes, it is specific. Why? Because it can be measured. How to measure? Because we given the fixed the limit which is 2%. And how it is achievable? Because it can be compared. The 2% capping is the limit. And even the time frame is also been mentioned. When it's come to a customer, improvement in customer satisfaction score by 4% by end of 2020. For the QMS, it could be number of improvement opportunities in a quarter, etc. Quality objectives and planning to achieve them. When we are setting up these quality objectives, the top management should know how to assess these quality objectives. So, the quality objective shall be consistent with the quality policy. It should be measurable, taken into account applicable requirements, be relevant to a conformity of products and services and to enhancement of customer satisfaction, be monitored, be communicated, be updated as appropriate. 6.2.2. The organization shall maintain a documented information on the quality objectives. When planning how to achieve its quality objective, the organization shall determine what will be done, what resource will be required, who will be responsible, when it will be completed, and how the results will be evaluated. Subclause 6.3. Planning of changes. When the organization has determined the needs for the changes to the QMS, the changes shall be carried out in a planned manner. The organization shall consider the purpose of the changes and their potential consequences, the integrity of the QMS, the availability of the resources, and last, the allocation or reallocation of the responsibility and the authorities. So, the steps to require to plan a change are as listed below. Identify the changes required and define the details of the changes. Then assess the needs of changes considering the purpose of the changes and the potential consequences, the availability of resources in order to bring the changes, the allocation or reallocation of the responsibility and the authorities, whether the integrity of the QMS could be compromised as a result of making the change. Once you have identified all these points, now get an approval from the top management, change approval for change implementation. Create a plan, identify the task, resource and the responsibility, timeline, etc. to carry out the change. Create a communication plan and identify all the internal and external stakeholders that are impacted and need to be informed of the change. Get review of the changes done by the top management, change approval after the changes are done. Conduct training for the people affected by the change. At last, monitor the change to evaluate its effectiveness. So guys, these are the simple methods how to plan a particular change in an organization. I hope you must have been doing all this kind of changes in your organization. Thank you. Please follow me on below links to get more details on Instagram, LinkedIn and YouTube.